Listen, we've been played by Mean Tangerine.
Oh, yeah. If you haven't written it down, the number here is 470-545-1950. Mark Taylor-Canfield. How you doing, pal?
Hey, I thought maybe a voice from the past might help give you a little solace.
The past?
Difficult times.
The past? What? 6 months?
Well, I was thinking about how we first started talking during the Occupy Wall Street movement. Yeah, and the May Day protests, you know,
right.
The pepper spray and the tear gas. And
oh, yeah.
so that's what we're thinking about. I'm actually doing a lot of journalism these days. I've got the MTC report over at YouTube, so I'm DIYing it, Mike. I realize that the corporate media and basically our corporate political institutions are pretty obsolete and irrelevant at this point.
They really are.
Yeah, encouraging people to just follow the example of the 12-year-olds who have their, you know, super popular gaming channels on YouTube. Just do it yourself. Don't worry what you look like, where you come from, how old you are. Just do it.
That's right.
And make media, because you can't rely, obviously, you know, working in the media, I deal with press freedom issues all the time and have had major battles over this issue. I'm asking the Seattle City Council actually to launch an initiative to protect the rights of journalists here because of my experiences of being threatened with arrest while trying to cover, you know, police actions or being pepper sprayed, even recently on, you know, trying to do my job as a journalist. But also, I'm editor at Democracy Watch News. We're covering pro-democracy movements all over the planet, and we sorely need a pro-democracy movement in this country right now, Mike.
Oh, man, yes.
Yeah, so it's keeping me really busy. But I'm also still doing music, and I just posted a song this week about the WTO demonstrations, and I'm just thinking about how that relates to what's happening at Standing Rock and the whole issue of the Army Corps of Engineers trying to evict all these people from the land, which, you know, brings up a lot of issues, including issues of federal intervention and, you know, things like the Posse Comitatus Act. Like, where is the line drawn when you have a federal authority basically telling people that if they remain on their land, it'll be at, quote, their own risk?
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
I mean, we know the Army can't go in there because they are, so far, legal precedent has kept us safe from military coups by keeping the U.S. Army and the Air Force and the Navy off the streets. You know, I mean, they do call in the National Guard. You know, they did that in Baltimore this year, and they also did that during the WTO demonstrations. They had National Guardsmen on the streets. But typically those guys are sort of more like your national militia, so they might actually live in the area, less likely to shoot people from their own community sort of thing.
Right.
And then the Coast Guard, they're allowed to do law enforcement, but those are considered local, you know, law enforcement, not federal in those circumstances for the most part. So we have this issue where, you know, it's up to the county sheriffs and up to the state police and private security to actually clear the land. And according to the letter, although people don't seem to quite believe it, I've been talking to people who were there, the letter said as of December 5th, there would be an eviction.
Yeah.
And so now you got 2,000 veterans on their way there to help protect the water protectors. And it's just looking like a major confrontation is brewing, Mike, and I haven't seen any backing off from the authorities, even after complaints to the United Nations about strip searches and people being put in cages and this whole dehumanizing effect that's going on there.
Yeah, I talked about this the other night, earlier this week, about the 2,000 or whatever the number is going to be of military veterans who are coming to stand in solidarity with the people who are protesting this pipeline. Now, let me ask you, how are county sheriffs or state National Guard going to physically remove people who have had military experience who are not there to fight? They're there to pray and to make their presence known in solidarity to these people. How are the authorities, what are they going to do? Are they going to pepper spray veterans?
Well, I can tell you that the word I'm getting from folks who are there currently and folks who just got back, and another journalist that we work with at Democracy Watch News named John Harvey, They're saying that no one really believes that there will be an eviction on December 5th.
When is that? Monday? Or
Yes.
Sunday or Monday?
Let's see. Let's look at the calendar. That would be Monday.
Yeah.
No. So the folks there, I mean, and it's possible, I have to admit this, that they're under a false sense of, security at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many people there, and there is, like I said, the Army, the Army Corps of Engineers isn't even a combat unit. I mean, really,
Right.
they are not going to move in. So it would be left up to the county and the private security and the state police once again. Meanwhile, the tribal leaders have been calling for federal intervention from the Department of Justice to stop the violations of their civil rights there and the mistreatment of people. So the government is being asked on the one hand to intervene and get those people off the land. On the other hand, they're being lobbied to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there are, conversations going on at the federal level right now where people are trying to figure out where to come down on this. But if they are under a false sense of security and there is a major confrontation, my experience, even here in Seattle during the WTO, that was my first experience with Seattle, just visiting here, was tear gas and what they called robo-cops at the time, because Seattle was one of the first cities to adopt a lot of the modern crowd control, so-called less lethal weaponry regime.
Mm-hmm.
And then that model was actually copied by police departments across the country. But if that happens, I think it'll only attract more people. You can always count on authority to overstep their authority at some point, shoot themselves in the foot, and then recruit for the other side. It's just inevitable.
The other thing too, Mark, I've seen some video of that encampment now at Standing Rock, and this is not Zuccotti Park, and not to minimize Zuccotti Park, but that was what it was. This is a massive amount of people who are there to take a stand, and how whatever authority is put against them to try to remove them, it does not bode well, does it?
No, and people should know this too, that this is a revolving camp as well. So in a place like Seattle, where, and I wrote today in the Capitol Hill Times about how, we are still free Seattle folks, okay? We're not going to give in to this bigotry and racism and prejudice going on in a lot of the country, even though, yes, we are separated by this big red sea of states between Montana and Texas from the Northeast and from the upper Midwest. We are not going to back down here. We're going to protect people's rights. Well, a lot of people from Seattle have been going to Standing Rock and doing these revolving tours. I just talked to two people who just got back. So a lot of people are actually going there. They're spending some time. They're trying to bring supplies and support people. And then they're revolving out and other people are coming in. So it's a consistent flow of people, too. It's not just one group of people. So even if they stop the group of people that are there, you can bet, even if they're able to evict those people, and I don't see how they're going to be able to do it at this point without tear gas, even if they are able to evict them, it's not going to stop people from gathering there in that area. And just the fact that the tribes are getting together with Black Lives Matter activists and environmentalists and celebrities or whatever all over the country is kind of showing us a new model for organizing, just like the WTO protests where, you had steel workers marching with hippie girl environmentalists from Greenpeace. Standing Rock is another place where a lot of diverse coalitions are coming together in a way that they've never had before. A lot of these people have not been talking to each other, Mike. So this is a new phenomenon. It's also happening in Seattle, where there have been a lot of community meetings. There's a major one going on actually on Sunday here, where a lot of the community is getting together in meetings and talking about mutual support and how to protect the rights of people here and what to do to organize politically. I think a lot of people had their eyes opened who were so, cynical with the electoral process that they didn't want to get involved. Well, they saw what happened when Bernie Sanders got pushed aside by the corporate Democrats. Then they saw what happened with the Republican Party, and he got the nomination and elected at least by the Electoral College at this point, if not by the popular vote. It's showed a lot of people, young students who've been marching. There was a walkout here against Trump where 5,000 local high school, middle school, and college students hit the streets, and they were talking about organizing politically. So I don't know whether it's going to happen within the Democratic Party because they've kind of blown it. But somehow in large coalitions, I think people are going to be working on a lot of these issues locally in their own communities and in issue-oriented coalitions, which might be a new sign of things to come in the United States.
I would hope
rely on the corporate parties.
I would hope, and Ugman and Stephen Ratner, about how the working class that voted for Trump, for whatever reason, how they're about to be kicked in the stomach because he's not going to deliver anything. Do you see the possibility, or what do you see as a possibility of disgruntled voters who realize eventually how badly they've been fooled by Trump? What do you see happening?
Well, there's that, and there's also the fact that he's such a scandal-laden person that it's only a matter of time before he blows it one way or another and loses his credibility. And then the Republicans are going to go down with him. So, I mean, literally, just until he kind of just took over the Republicans by winning this election, the Republican Party was starting to die on the vine due to its own extremism. So I don't see that going away. What I'm thinking about is all these people in Seattle who voted for Bernie Sanders, who voted for Jill Stein, or even Gary Johnson, who are saying, we have no place to go. And then you're looking at people across the country, working class folks who didn't think the Republicans or the Democrats represented them, and maybe some of them voted for Trump as a protest. Maybe some of them voted holding their nose. I think those people, he's got the lowest ratings of any president going into
But what is the working class going to do? The ones that he excited with his racism and his homophobia and his misogyny, and I'm not going to be politically correct anymore, and I'm going to save you, and I'm a strong leader. What are those people going to do, seriously now, when they realize it was all bullshit? What are they going to do, if anything?
If the past is any indication, Mike, they probably will go back into hiding again as they were before this. I doubt they're going to disappear from the planet. There's always, it seems like in every civilization, in every movement, in every political structure, there are those fascists out there who want to shut down the rights of everybody else. But, when you're talking about flag burning, causing people to lose their citizenship and stuff, you're stepping on some very cherished, sacred American values about freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press. And I think that once people see that the wool has been pulled over their eyes, and that this guy is a corporatist, he's probably closer to a lot of the Democratic National Committee than he is to a lot of Republicans.
Yeah, really.
I think once they realize that it was all a sham as well, that they're going to be upset at their own leadership.
Well, that's
I don't know where they go at that point.
Yeah, well, that's the question I have, and I think it's a key question. What are the people who put so much of whatever hope they had left, whether it was a protest vote or a vote truly asking for help when they should have voted for Sanders, what they're going to do when it becomes perfectly clear, if it's not already, what Trump is. And he's just stabbing these people in the back already with the appointments he's making, with the nominees that he's gathering around him, some of which don't need Senate confirmation. And I can't help but wonder if rank and file Republicans, if such a thing exists, who voted for Trump, how they're going to react, how they're going to respond, whether or not they're going to take to the streets, whether or not they're going to participate in civil disobedience. I don't know. I don't know. Weird times, Mark.
Yeah, considering the amount of fake news and propaganda, Obama was going to declare martial law before the election.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Hillary Clinton was absolutely going to be indicted. No.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
On it.
Right.
None of that made sense. So I think at this point, I don't trust anybody. I don't trust what the political parties are saying. I don't trust what the media is saying. They got the election wrong in many ways. The political consultants, some of whom I know, screwed up, and I called them out right on the air. Are you guys incompetent? Mm-hmm. Or something else going on? Was this election rigged? How did this happen? Because people that I've been talking to in other parts of the world are very confused about two things. One, how did the person with the most popular votes not win the election, right, regardless of her political affiliations, which are also questionable?
Right.
Then also you have, how is it that the U.S. media and all the political consultants said up until, almost a half hour before it was called, that Hillary's got this in the bag, Hillary Clinton's going to win this one, no problem. Right. That's very confusing. So we as a country have lost a lot of our legitimacy in the eyes of the rest of the world. They don't trust our media now. They don't trust our politics. They don't know what's going on. All I know is that people are disenfranchised on both sides of the spectrum, Mike, and that actually might lead to some movement in the future across political lines where people decide that we're all in the same boat together. We've all been screwed. And the working class is not going to be represented by a millionaire and expect to get what it needs. The minimum wage is, even now in states that it's been adopted as a new thing, is well below what a decent standard of living would require in this country. In Seattle, we know, because we have homeless encampments, I call them economic refugee camps, all over the city where people cannot afford the rents here anymore, even working.
Yeah.
So there you go. Those people have got to organize and are eventually going to get organized. The people on the right and the left have actually been working on some of the same issues, you know, things like the TPP cross barriers. There's a lot of things that actually cross barriers, and regardless of, I don't know what all the bigots are going to do. Like I said, they probably will go back into the woodwork and hide on their little secret circle.
Well, I certainly hope that doesn't happen. I appreciate your checking in. Stay in touch as best you can, okay?
Keep it lit, Mike. You're doing the right thing. Keep it up. You're inspiring a lot of us. So thank you.
Back at you, pal. Take care. Mark Taylor-Canfield. I remember the first time he called us, Kathy. Was it during? No, it wasn't the WTO thing. That was way back in the 90s. I guess it was, like he said, it was the Occupy movement when it first started to develop. He's a good guy. Mark's a good guy. Very, very dedicated to the idea of justice. Yeah, I know, aren't we all? But no, we all aren't. We talk about it, and maybe we try, but then you have people who are truly dedicated to the things that need dedication.